Have you ever woken up and felt like your throat forgot how to work? That thick, stuck feeling, like the whole night settled right there while you slept. Now picture a woman in her late 70s, standing barefoot in a dark kitchen in the mountains outside Takayama, Japan. 5:40 in the morning. She hasn't spoken a word yet. She fills a kettle, sets it on the stove, and waits. She doesn't reach for a lozenge, doesn't gargle with mouthwash, doesn't clear her throat into a tissue. She pours the hot water into a ceramic cup that belonged to her mother, and drinks it plain. Lie. Standing by the window while the garden is still gray. Japan has among the highest life expectancy on Earth. More people over 100 than any other country. Over 90,000 of them. And when you watch how their mornings begin, one thing stands out. They almost always start warm. This video covers 3 small things Japanese seniors build into every day. Not treatments, not remedies, not anything a doctor prescribed. Just the way a day runs when warmth comes first. The first one starts before the sun, and before a single word. 1. Hot water before words. 5:40 in the mountains, and the kettle is already on. She doesn't sip right away. She holds the cup in both hands and lets the steam reach her face first. Then she drinks. No honey, no lemon, no ginger. Just hot water, plain, the way her mother drank it and her grandmother before that. By the time she speaks her first words of the day, to the cat, then to her husband, her voice comes out clean. No rasp, no clearing. She never thinks about it. The throat just works, because something warm got there first. Most of us start the morning the opposite way. Cold air from the vent, a phone screen before our eyes are fully open. The first sentence of the day pushed through a throat that hasn't had anything warm since midnight. She doesn't do this because someone told her to. The morning has always started with a kettle in this house. A cup, 2 hands, 3 minutes by a window. The healthy thing became the easy thing a generation before she was born. Tomorrow morning, try it. A kettle, any cup, hot water, plain, before your first word. But warming the throat is only the start. What she eats next, and the order she eats it in, tells you even more. 2. Warm soup, before anything solid. 7 in the morning in a fishing village outside Naha, Okinawa. A couple in their 80s kneel at a low wooden table. 6 small plates arranged on a tray. Grilled fish, pickled vegetables, rice, a sliced egg. Every plate small enough to fit in your palm. But the first thing she reaches for isn't any of them. It's a bowl of miso, barely bigger than a teacup, fermented paste, soft tofu, a ribbon of seaweed floating on top. She lifts it with both hands and drinks it like tea, no spoon. Until that bowl is empty, nothing else gets touched. That's the order. Always. Warm liquid first, solid food second. The miso arrives first. The chopsticks wait. Now think about your own morning. Cold cereal from the box, toast on the way out, or nothing at all until noon, when the first thing to reach the stomach is a sandwich at the steering wheel. Here's the part worth sitting with. Nobody at that table in Okinawa thinks of this as a practice. The soup comes first, because the soup has always come first. 60 years of mornings. Same table, same order, same bowls. They didn't design this routine, they inherited it. You don't need miso to borrow the idea. Any warm broth, any simple soup. Before the toast, before the eggs, before the coffee. Let the stomach start warm, the way the throat did. But water and soup only cover half the day. The last habit happens 12 hours later, and it might be the one that ties everything together. 3. The hot bath before sleep. Most American evenings end the same way. A shower that takes 5 minutes. Dry air from the heating vent. A screen glowing 12 inches from the face. By morning, the throat feels like it spent the night in a dust storm. Step back into that wooden house outside Takayama. 9 in the evening. The woman from the first habit, the one with the kettle and her mother's cup, draws a bath. Not a shower. A full tub, filled to the chest, hot enough to flush the skin pink. She sinks into her shoulders and stays. 10 minutes. 15. The room fills with warm, wet air. She breathes it inly, the way you'd breathe fog off a lake at dawn. No phone in the room. No television down the hall. Just heat, water, and the sound of her own breathing. And here's the quiet part. In Japan, the bath isn't for getting clean. You wash first, outside the tub. The soak is for warming the body all the way through before the night begins. And that warm, steamy air moves through the throat the same way the hot water did 14 hours earlier at the kitchen window. The day started warm. It ends warm. That's not an accident. That's a design. Warmth at sunrise. Warmth at the table. Warmth before sleep. The body never fights its way from cold to ready. It opens once, in the morning, and never quite closes. When was the last time you sat in a bath long enough to stop thinking about anything at all? 3 habits. Warm water before your first word. Warm soup before solid food. A hot bath before sleep. No supplements, no equipment, no prescription. Nothing that costs more than a kettle and a few minutes. Nobody in that mountain house, nobody in that fishing village, calls any of this a routine. The kettle goes on because the kettle has always gone on. The soup comes first because it always has. The bath fills because the evening has always ended warm. They didn't build these habits, they grew up inside them. That woman in Takayama, standing at the window at 5:40 with her mother's cup, 79, gardens every morning, cooks every meal, speaks in a voice that comes out clear from first word to last. She doesn't think about her throat. Her day starts warm, runs warm, and ends warm. You don't need all 3. You need a kettle, a cup, and 3 quiet minutes tomorrow morning before your first word. That's the step. Which one would you try first? The water, the soup, or the bath? Tell me in the comments. If this made you think of someone whose mornings could start warmer, send them this video. The like button tells me to make more like it. Next time, we're looking at why Japanese seniors almost never eat breakfast alone. If you want that one to find you, subscribe. 5:40 in the morning. The kettle clicks off. She wraps both hands around her mother's cup and watches the garden turn from gray to green. The cat nudges her ankle. She takes the first sip, and the day begins warm.